How can a river turn from clear blue into a rainbow of colors without a single drop of dye? And why does a desert in Egypt look like there's more snow than sand? And if that sounds unbelievable, wait until you see how ancient volcano eruptions created a place mountain monkeys now call home. All these places point us towards some of the most surreal, impossible, and otherworldly landscapes this planet has to offer. But they're just the beginning. Today, we'll uncover an Earth that feels like it shouldn't exist, born in chaos, ruled by no logic, and as strange as another planet. This is Impossible Earth. It's called the River of Five Colors, but even that falls short. Caño Cristales doesn't just flow through Colombia's Sierra de la Macarena, it glows. For a few months each year, this river becomes a living canvas. From late May to November, during the wet-dry transition, the aquatic plant Macarenia clavigera bursts into deep reds, purples, and pinks. These colors contrast with the river's gold, green, and blue minerals. The result is a natural spectacle unlike anything else on Earth. The beauty looks unreal, even fragile. But this place is both ancient and resilient. It formed over 1.2 billion years ago, older than the Andes, and sits at the unique meeting point of Amazon, Andes, and Orinoco ecosystems. Walk the riverbanks, and you'll pass black rock formations, rushing waterfalls, and still, shallow pools that flash crimson under sunlight. In some places, the river is no wider than a hiking trail. In others, it opens into broad channels, ringed by cliffs and tropical scrub. Caño Cristales flows over the Guiana Shield, one of the oldest rock formations on Earth. Because the river carries little sediment, its clarity reveals everything: the plants beneath, the smoothed rock bed, the clean current. This transparency allows Macarenia clavigera to photosynthesize and bloom so intensely. Once off limits due to conflict, the area reopened in the early 2000s. Now it requires permits, guides, and strict regulations to protect its ecosystem. Visitor numbers are limited to preserve its delicate balance. Picture stepping into a dream where someone painted the entire world white. That's Egypt's White Desert, where massive chalk formations rise from pale ground like sculptures carved by invisible hands. You won't find golden sand dunes here. Instead, wind and time have shaped ancient seabed into towers, arches, and mushroom-shaped rocks that glow against the empty sky. These formations started as tiny sea creatures millions of years ago. Their shells compressed into chalk when this desert was actually ocean floor. Now desert winds carve these soft white rocks into shapes that look too perfect to be natural. Some resemble giant mushrooms, others look like camels, frozen mid-stride, or human faces watching the horizon. When you arrive during the day, heat waves make the white formations shimmer and dance. Your eyes struggle to judge distances across this ghost-white plain. But at night, something magical happens. Moonlight transforms the chalk sculptures into glowing towers that seem to pulse with their own inner light. The silence here goes deeper than anywhere else on Earth. Bedouin guides have crossed the desert for centuries, following routes between these landmark formations. They know which rocks provide the best shelter and where to find the rare water sources hidden in this chalk maze. Modern visitors camp among these white sentinels, listening to wind whisper against tent fabric while stars reflect off pale stone surfaces. The white desert doesn't give you answers about what you've seen. It only asks one question: where were you, really? What does it feel like to walk on the edge of Africa's roof, where the air is thin and the world falls away in silence? In Ethiopia's Simeon Mountains, you're standing on one of the most dramatic highland landscapes on Earth. These jagged cliffs and plateaus rise over 4,500 meters above sea level, carved by millions of years of erosion rather than ice or water. The result is a landscape that feels both ancient and alien. Sharp ridges cut through deep valleys, while sheer drops plunge into green chasms below. This isn't just visually overwhelming terrain. The thin air and harsh conditions have created a unique ecosystem where rare species thrive on the brink. Gelada baboons gather in troops across the high meadows, their red chests bright against the rocky ground. Ethiopian wolves hunt for rodents in sparse vegetation. Walia ibex navigate cliff faces that would challenge the most skilled climbers. You hear the crunch of gravel underfoot as you hike along precipices. Your breath comes short from the altitude. The quiet gets broken only by distant bleats or the call of a lammergeier overhead. Cloud banks roll over ridgelines like slow waves. One moment brings sun and stillness, the next brings mist and wind. This landscape has witnessed centuries of human presence. Amhara communities tend farmland in the valleys below, while shepherds guide flocks across the high meadows above. The Simeon Mountains are more than peaks. They're a stone memory of time itself, raw and unfinished. What do you call a valley so deep it feels protected by gods? Porsark isn't just hard to reach, it's hard to describe. Hidden in Iceland's southern highlands, this glacial-carved sanctuary sits surrounded by 3 massive glaciers. Eyjafjallajökull looms to the west, Mýrdalsjökull spreads across the south, and Tindafjallajökull guards the north. The name means Thor's forest, and while it hints at divine power, the real magic lies in its quiet contrasts. Getting here isn't for casual visitors. You'll ford glacial rivers that can change depth in minutes. Iceland's weather strikes without warning, turning clear paths into whiteout conditions. But that isolation creates the experience. This valley doesn't offer comfort. It offers something far more valuable. One moment you're walking through twisted birch forests, roots clinging to volcanic soil like desperate fingers. The next, you're staring across black sand flats, where braided rivers weave silver patterns toward distant snowcaps. Wind pulls at your jacket, while thunder rumbles overhead. But it's not from storm clouds, it's from shifting ice masses grinding against ancient rock. Arctic birch trees grow stunted but determined here. Bright green moss carpets the ground between sudden bursts of wildflowers that somehow thrive in this harsh beauty. The valley exists between forces, shaped by eruptions, carved by ice, held together by roots that refuse to give up. For hikers on Iceland's legendary Lugavagar Trail, Porsark serves as a sacred waypoint. This isn't about taking photos, it's about walking slowly through a place where you finally understand why people once believed gods lived in the landscape. What happens when the ocean becomes an artist and the canvas is stone? You'll find the answer at Leo Geo Park, Taiwan's coastal masterpiece stretching into the East China Sea. This narrow promontory hosts some of the world's most bizarre rock formations, from the famous Queen's Head to mushroom rocks and sea-carved arches. These formations feel deliberate, like a surrealist sculptor worked here for decades. But they're entirely natural, shaped by thousands of years of salt-laden waves, tectonic uplift, and seasonal typhoons. Erosion has turned chaos into perfect form. The Queen's Head stands tall, elegant, and balanced on her slender neck. Nearby, you'll spot the stubby fairy shoe, the cracked elephant rock, and clusters of stone that look like coral, bone, or bread dough. Some formations seem fragile enough to topple in the wind. Others appear frozen mid-transformation. The stone is mostly sandstone, layered and cracked by shifting pressure and sea spray. Chemical weathering shapes those mushroom-like necks, making them thinner each year. It's science, but it feels like magic. Walkways wind carefully between formations, marked by signs and gentle warnings. Don't touch the Queen, she's eroding too. Tourists, geologists, photographers, and schoolchildren all come to witness this slow, salt-made museum, where time is the artist and the waves never stop sketching new masterpieces. What if a mountain could hold 1,000 years of sunset and never repeat a color twice? High in Argentina's northwest corner, near the small town of Humahuaca, sits Horno Mountain. Local people call it the Mountain of 14 Colors, though that number feels modest when you see it yourself. At over 14,000 feet above sea level, this peak reveals stripes of color that look almost too perfect to be real. The drive up takes you through thin air and growing silence. Your ears pop, the landscape empties. Then suddenly, the ridgeline appears against the sky like someone painted directly onto stone. The mountain doesn't just have colors, it wears them in bands that stretch across its entire face. These aren't surface tricks or mineral stains. Deep underground, millions of years of limestone and iron-rich sediments got folded and twisted by massive tectonic pressure. Time and weather carved away the outer layers, exposing this geological time capsule, stripe by stripe. From far away, the colors look soft and gentle. Walk closer and they sharpen into vivid bands of crimson, ochre, olive green, gray, and violet. The stripes don't run straight across, they rise and fall like frozen waves, each one telling the story of ancient seas and shifting continents. This region has been home to Quechua communities for centuries, sitting along old Andean trade routes. Unlike Peru's more famous Rainbow Mountain, Horno feels quieter and more intimate. You don't need to hike for hours or fight crowds. You just need to look and let your sense of time shift, one colorful band at a time. What if a forest learned to sing through water? At Plitvice, the lakes don't sit, they move, constantly, quietly, endlessly. Picture Croatia's Plitvice Lakes National Park as a vast forested basin where 16 terraced lakes flow into each other through nearly 100 waterfalls. This UNESCO World Heritage Site ranks among Europe's most iconic natural sanctuaries, but it speaks in gentle tones, not grand ones. You'll find yourself walking through a sequence rather than standing before a single vista. Each lake shows a different shade depending on minerals, light, and time of day. Milky blue shifts to glass green, then deep teal. Wooden walkways hover just above water level, letting you hear the rhythm from below. Your footsteps create a steady crunch on weathered boards, while thousands of water droplets create their own symphony around you. The waterfalls drop in veils, in threads, in thunder. Some tumble from moss-covered cliffs, while others trickle through fern-choked stone. One moment brings roaring power, the next delivers absolute hush in a glade of dragonflies. Mist touches your face as you move from platform to platform, following the water's path downstream. These lakes form through travertine, calcium-rich rock created by moss, bacteria, and mineral deposits over thousands of years. That same living limestone keeps building and changing the waterfall's shape even today. Visitors flow through the park just like the water itself, quietly moving in long threads. Plitvice doesn't ask for awe, it earns it slowly, step by step, as you follow the water and forget what time it is. What kind of fire burns blue? What kind of lake kills with a breath? At Kawwa Een, beauty is not a comfort, it's a warning. Picture this. You're hiking through the darkness in East Java, Indonesia, heading toward one of the world's strangest volcanic craters. Your destination is Kawwa Een, home to Earth's largest acidic lake and flames that burn electric blue in the night. The lake stretches before you like a perfect turquoise pool, inviting as a tropical paradise. But this water would dissolve your skin on contact. You need a gas mask here. The air tastes metallic and burns your throat if you breathe too deeply. Sulfurous fumes rise from underground vents, thick enough to make your eyes water. When the wind shifts, you feel this sting in your lungs instantly. Yet through this haze, you spot something impossible: blue flames dancing in the darkness like ghost fire. These aren't ordinary flames. They're burning sulfur gas escaping from deep within the earth, reaching temperatures over 500 degrees Celsius. The blue color only appears in complete darkness, which is why visitors make this treacherous hike before dawn. Every morning, sulfur miners descend into this crater with basic tools and minimal protection. They carve bright yellow chunks of sulfide sulfur by hand, then haul 70 to 90 kilogram loads up steep rocky paths. Their work is as harsh as the landscape itself. As sunrise approaches, the blue flames fade, but the scale remains overwhelming. Kawwa Een doesn't exist to enchant you. It exists to remind you that Earth can be beautiful and deadly in the same breath. What happens when wilderness doesn't spread endlessly, but folds inward, coiled around a river and dry earth? In northern Kenya, Sambururu National Reserve answers this question with a landscape that feels carved from red stone and patience. The Owasso Ngiro River cuts through semi-arid terrain like a lifeline, creating something sharper and more intimate than the vast savannas to the south. This terrain filters out the fragile. Only the adapted survive here. Grevy's zebras carry narrow stripes that help regulate their body temperature in the scorching heat. Reticulated giraffes wear tight lattice coats that break up their silhouette against thorny scrub. Gerenux stretch upright on their hind legs, reaching acacia branches that other animals can't touch. The soil is red, the wind is dry. Elephants gather in silence at a shrinking waterhole, dust coating their backs like powder. A lion moves between rocks, visible for a moment, then gone. trees grow flat and wide to cast as much shade as they can manage. This is Sambururu land. Nomadic pastoralists have lived here for generations, reading this terrain like a living map. They know where the elephants drink before the elephants do. Their presence isn't decorative, but foundational to understanding this place. Sambururu isn't a park of endless motion. It's a reserve of held breath, where the rare and the ordinary meet at low water. The drama, when it comes, is close and unfiltered. This landscape isn't built for spectacle, but for survival, teaching dry season patience and the quiet certainty that life here knows how to last. What if a mountain refused to lie flat and instead rose straight up, hundreds of times? That's exactly what happened in China's Hunan province, where Zeng Xia National Forest Park creates a world built on verticality. Over 3,000 quartz sandstone pillars shoot up from dense forests. Like stone spires reaching for the sky. These aren't hills or cliffs. They're columns that look impossible, but stand perfectly real. The pillars aren't some trick of fog or fantasy. Millions of years of tectonic uplift, water erosion, and weathering carved them into existence until they stood alone like towers that escaped from a mountain range. Mist flows between these stone giants like slow water. Monkeys leap across ravines no rope could span. A stone finger called Avatar Hallelujah Mountain seems to levitate, its summit often lost in drifting cloud. Pathways curve along cliff faces, while cable cars rise above treetops. Glass walkways offer views of a void so deep it looks infinite. The landscape doesn't open like most places, it stacks. The park sits within the Wulingyuan Scenic Area, a UNESCO World Heritage Site where rare stone forests shelter ginkgo trees, macaques, and rare birds. Yes, crowds come here, but step beyond the main corridors and silence returns. A single rustling leaf or echoing bird call reminds you this place lifts everything, not just in space, but in feeling. Zeng Xia isn't a landscape you walk through, it's one you look up at, over and over, until your sense of scale shifts completely. Not built for us, not shaped for access, just standing unreasonably and beautifully because the earth knew how. The first thing you notice is the light, not its brightness, but the way it bends. Antelope Canyon sits in northern Arizona, carved through Navajo sandstone by flash floods and wind over thousands of years. This isn't a canyon in the grand sense. It's a narrow corridor of wave-shaped walls where sunlight falls like a curtain through gaps in the rock above. The place doesn't open up around you, it closes in. The walls feel smooth and cold under your fingers. The air stays still. Every step forward changes the color washing over the sandstone. Deep rust shifts to rose gold, then violet. A shaft of light appears ahead, and suddenly, you understand why photographers return here for years, chasing one specific angle. Above, Arizona blazes with sun. Down here, in the canyon's breath, everything stays quiet, cool, carved. Your footsteps sound soft against the sandy floor. Your voice comes back to you with the weight of the walls. The canyon feels both narrow and infinite, measured not in distance, but in turns. The Navajo people consider this a sacred site. Its name roughly translates to the place where water runs through rocks. You can only visit through guided tours, not just for protection, but for respect. The walls ripple like fabric frozen in stone. Light arrives, then disappears in seconds. You don't walk through the canyon. You're carried by its shape, guided by curves that seem to know exactly where you need to go next. You round a cliff, the sea widens, and then the roof opens. Along Portugal's Algarve coast sits Algar de Bengil, a sea cave that feels like stepping into another dimension. From the outside, it's just a notch in the rocky cliff face. But paddle your kayak through that narrow opening, and you enter something completely different. A hidden room with soft golden sand, emerald water, and a perfect circular skylight that drops sunlight straight onto the beach below. This place feels enclosed and open at the same time. The walls curve around you like a dome, smooth limestone striped with bands of cream and orange. But overhead, that collapsed roof creates a window to the sky. Sea and sky meet in the middle of the cave, not at the horizon like everywhere else on Earth. The tide rolls in and rolls out with gentle rhythm. Reflections shimmer and dance across the ceiling. paddleboard drifts quietly through the cave mouth. Voices echo softly before the stone swallows the sound. You can swim in that green water, stand where the light touches down, or just sit quietly and listen to waves brushing the walls. Thousands of years of ocean waves carved this chamber from porous limestone. It's part of a larger network of sea caves along the Algarve, but this one stands apart because of that open dome overhead. You can't reach it on foot, only by kayak, paddleboard, or boat. It doesn't frame the ocean, it invites it inside. The lake is red, not rust, not reflection, red. High in Bolivia's Eduardo Avaroa Andean Fauna National Reserve, near the Chilean border, Lagona Korada stretches across the altiplano like a crimson mirror. This shallow salt lake sits under a thin sky, colored by red algae and mineral sediments that shift tone with wind and sun. The water glows rust-colored under cloudless skies, framed by white borax islands and the silhouettes of distant mountains. Flamingos feed slowly across the surface, leaving soft wakes through a mirror of pigment and light. Around the lake, silence spreads, no trees, no buildings. Just wind, cracked salt flats, and the slow shimmer of heat rising off red water. Snow-capped volcanoes float on the horizon, unreal in their clarity. The land feels exposed, but never empty. The lake runs only a few feet deep, but it's dense with minerals, sodium, borax, gypsum, and its red color comes from algae that thrive in extreme salinity and sunlight. Some days the lake turns orange, other days wine dark. It is never exactly the same. Three species of flamingo live here, including the rare James's flamingo. Their pale bodies and pink legs add movement to the lake surface, one color floating over another. At over 4,300 meters, the air is thin, motion slows, breath shortens. Even thoughts seem to echo more slowly out here. Lagona Korada doesn't ask for attention, it holds it. A red lake at the roof of the continent, too shallow to swim, too strange to ignore. The light comes through pine needles. The mountain rises behind mist, not above it. Deep in South Korea's northeastern mountains, Searoxan National Park creates a landscape where jagged granite peaks meet ancient forests and Buddhist temples. The name means Snowy Crag Mountain, pointing to winter summits draped in white, but each season transforms this place completely. Autumn turns the entire forest into a gradient of gold, crimson, and rust. Spring brings cherry blossoms that drift past towering rock faces. Winter silences everything but wind. You hear water first, small, steady, falling between mossy stones. You walk past the bronze Buddha at Zeng Xia Temple, incense curling into mountain air. A stone staircase rises through Korean firs and twisted yews. At the top, a sudden expanse of ridges opens up, wind-stripped and sunlit. The climb takes effort, the view brings calm. Rock formations like Ulsanbawi, 6 sharp granite peaks lined in a perfect row, give the landscape rhythm and structure. These aren't random mountains, they tell a story in stone. The park shelters rare species like the long-tailed goral, a small antelope that navigates these cliffs with surprising grace. Searoxan carries more than scenery, it holds sacred weight. Shrines sit tucked into cliff faces, monks chant just out of sight. Even casual hikers pause when the trees open and the valley floor falls away beneath them. This mountain doesn't overwhelm, it steadies. It gives shape to time in layers of stone and color that changes by the week, in the slow breath between steps on a high ridge. The tallest sand dune in Europe rises from the middle of a pine forest in France. Dune Dupila stands over 100 meters high and stretches nearly 3 kilometers long, creating a massive wall of sand that feels completely out of place. One side drops into a dense green forest. The other side falls straight into the Atlantic Ocean. You start climbing through sand so soft, it swallows your shoes within minutes. Each step sinks deep, making the ascent slow and deliberate. The wind reshapes the crest daily, erasing every footprint behind you. No step feels permanent here. The climb is slow, the view is immediate. To the west, the Atlantic spreads flat in silver, dotted with oyster beds that look like dark patches from this height. To the east, an ocean of pine trees extends to the horizon. You stand suspended between two completely different worlds, as if you found a border drawn by the earth itself. Coastal winds pushed sand inland for centuries, creating this moving mountain that grows, shrinks, and shifts every year. It swallows parts of the forest during storms, then retreats during calmer seasons. The dune literally eats and releases the landscape around it. Heat rises from the sand beneath your feet, but ocean wind cools your face. At the summit, there's only space. No signs, no shade, just light, air, and motion beneath you. The dune creates its own presence without needing explanation. Dune Dupila doesn't offer a story. It offers a moment suspended between forest and sea, held in place by nothing but wind. The surface may freeze, but nothing about this place is still. Deep in southeastern Siberia sits Lake Baikal, a body of water that breaks every rule about what lakes should be. At over 1,600 meters deep and 25 million years old, it's the deepest and oldest freshwater lake on Earth. This ancient giant holds nearly 20% of all unfrozen freshwater on the planet, yet it never feels overwhelming. Everything about Baikal feels precise and measured. Summer brings vast blue water stretching to the horizon, bordered by larch forests and mountains. But winter transforms Baikal into something extraordinary. The lake freezes into sheets of clear ice that crack, shift, and sing with sounds only the coldest places can make. The ice becomes glass. You can see meters down through it, watching fish swim below, ancient bubbles trapped in time, and stone formations on the lake floor. Wind carves intricate patterns across the surface. People walk, skate, and even drive across ice that looks fragile but holds enormous weight. It's beautiful but unsettling. This isolated world hosts over 3,000 species, with more than half found nowhere else on Earth. The Nerpa, our planet's only freshwater seal, calls these waters home. The water's incredible purity lets life evolve in complete isolation. For indigenous Buryat people and local Siberians, Baikal is sacred. They call it the Sacred Sea. Temples and stone cairns mark its shores, where myths live as deeply as the unique biology beneath the ice. Baikal doesn't ask you to move, it asks you to listen to depth, time, and cold that deepens rather than fades. What if an island drifted away before the Earth finished designing it? Sotra Island sits 380 kilometers off the coast of Yemen in the Arabian Sea, isolated for over 20 million years. Nearly 40% of its plant life exists nowhere else on Earth. The island doesn't feel remote. It feels separate, like nature made a side project and never shared it. Dragonblood trees tilt upward like green umbrellas on pale trunks, casting patterned shadows over limestone plateaus. Desert roses bloom from swollen, contorted stems. Everything seems designed for a world with different rules. The wind is constant, the soil is thin, the light harsh. Coastal cliffs drop into turquoise shallows, while inland caves open into deep, dry quiet. Even the air smells unfamiliar, herbal, mineral, a little electric. Socotra's isolation allowed evolution to proceed without interruption. The dragonblood tree bleeds crimson resin, once prized for medicine and dye. Giant succulent trees store water in their trunks. Each species reflects survival in a place where rain is rare and terrain shifts from sand to rock in minutes. Small Socotri villages dot the interior and coast. People fish, farm date palms, herd goats. Many still speak Socotri, an oral language older than Arabic, shaped by wind, sea, and stone. Socotra doesn't ask to be understood, it asks to be observed. A place where life took a detour and never came back. Where Earth feels experimental and better for it. The sand goes on for kilometers, then breaks open into water. In northeastern Brazil, Lençóis Maranhenses National Park stretches across 1,500 square kilometers of rolling white dunes that look like desert but aren't. The name means bedsheets, and from above, the dunes ripple like unmade linen across the landscape. Yet this place defies every rule about what a desert should be. Despite its appearance, Lençóis Maranhenses receives regular seasonal rain. Between May and September, the valleys between dunes fill with clear turquoise pools, rainwater held in place by impermeable rock just beneath the sand. These aren't mirages or temporary puddles. They're real freshwater lagoons that transform the entire landscape. You walk barefoot across the hot sand, feeling the breeze cool your skin. A sharp ridge gives way to a still pool, almost invisible until you're standing right above it. The water is warm, shallow, impossibly clean. You swim for a few minutes, then walk again. The landscape keeps folding in on itself, revealing new pools around every dune. The lagoons come and go with their own rhythm. Some last days, others remain for months. Fish appear, carried in on bird legs or born from dormant eggs that waited years for water. Locals time their visits to specific pools. Some are green, others blue, depending on algae, depth, and light. Small communities like Atins and Barariñas serve as entry points. Visitors take 4x4s or walk for hours. No signs, no fences. Just dunes that shift daily and water that knows when to return. The trees are still standing, but they're underwater. Deep in Kazakhstan's Tian Shan Mountains, about 130 kilometers east of Almaty, sits Lake Kandy at 2,000 meters above sea level. This isn't your typical mountain lake. In 1911, a massive earthquake triggered a limestone landslide that created a natural dam, flooding an entire spruce forest in just days. What you see today defies logic. Hundreds of gray tree trunks, piercing through glacial blue water like ancient sentinels. You arrive expecting mountain stillness. Instead, you find something stranger. Above the surface, skeletal spruce trunks rise from the water, stripped of their bark and gleaming silver in morning light. Below the surface, the forest remains perfectly preserved, branches intact, suspended in eternal silence. The water hits you with a shocking cold, fed by constant snowmelt from surrounding peaks. You hear almost nothing, no birds, no boats, just wind through the remaining needles in your own breathing. When divers enter this underwater world, they swim between full trees that stand exactly where they grew over a century ago. Their limbs spread like bone, creating an underwater cathedral that shouldn't exist. The lake's frigid temperature slows decay to nearly nothing, keeping this submerged forest eerily complete. Surrounding cliffs reflect perfectly on the mirror-like surface. Getting here requires a rough mountain road or hiking trail, so you'll likely have this impossible place to yourself. Lake Kandy doesn't explain itself, it just holds its shape, a forest sunken, but still standing. The mountain doesn't rise high, but it doesn't have to. It speaks in fire. Mount Yasur sits on the Tana Island in Vanuatu, standing just 361 meters above sea level. Despite its modest height, this volcano has been continuously erupting for over 800 years. What makes it extraordinary is access. You don't watch from a distance, you stand on its edge. The approach starts quietly. You ride or hike across an ash plain where vegetation thins and the sky grows heavier. As you near the crater, the sound begins. Not wind, not thunder, something deeper. The breath of the mountain. There's no barrier. You reach the crater's edge just before sunset. The ground vibrates beneath your feet. Sulfur cuts the air. A red glow pulses from below, then a blast of molten rock arcs upward, disappears in smoke, and falls back into the open mouth of the earth. You feel it in your chest, not fear, gravity. Ash drifts in the wind, the sky dims, the mountain flashes. In the silence between eruptions, the waiting becomes heavier than the sound itself. Yasur is a Strombolian volcano, ejecting magma and gas at regular intervals. Its behavior is closely monitored, with access levels shifting based on a color-coded alert system. It's dangerous, but not reckless. It demands presence. For the people of Tana, Yasur isn't just a volcano. It's custom, part of origin stories and ceremony. Its voice isn't spectacle, but spirit. Mount Yasur doesn't offer distance, it offers closeness. Earth at its most direct, glowing, cracking, lifting, and landing meters from where you stand. The wind arrives before the mountains, then the granite appears, and nothing moves except the sky. Torres del Paine National Park spans over 1,800 square kilometers in Chilean Patagonia. The park takes its name from the Torres, 3 massive granite towers that rise like ancient spears from the earth. Everything here feels scaled up and sharpened. Jagged peaks cut through clouds, blue glaciers stretch between valleys. Rivers rush with meltwater that never stops flowing. This isn't a gentle landscape. The wind can knock you sideways without warning. Temperature shifts happen in minutes, not hours. Even the silence moves. Clouds pour over ridgelines, guanacos thread through grassland, glacial ice cracks in the distance. The Cuernos del Paine rise in two-toned granite, their horns dusted with snow. Below them, turquoise lakes stretch out, colored by mineral-rich meltwater. The Gray Glacier pushes forward, calving chunks into an ice-choked lagoon. You hike not for stillness, but to keep up with the place. Your boots crunch over moraine. Your jacket whips against your body. Light hits the rock differently every hour. At sunrise, the torres burn pink. By afternoon, they flatten into shadow. You wait for the calm. It rarely comes. The Paine Massif formed through uplift, ice, and relentless erosion. It's part of the Andes but stands apart, younger, rougher, more exposed. The park hosts pumas, foxes, condors, and massive ice fields, all shaped by the same pressures that shaped the stone. Torres del Paine doesn't unfold gently. It cuts its way into memory through wind, granite, and water that never stops moving. You follow the sound long before you see the river. Then the cliffs rise around you, and you're inside something vast. This is Tara River Canyon in northern Montenegro, the deepest canyon in Europe and second deepest in the world. The canyon drops over 1,300 meters from rim to riverbed, carved by the Tara River through limestone over millions of years. It cuts through Dormitor National Park like a moving scar, alive with water, held by rock. The canyon isn't just a visual drop. It's a sensory shift. The light narrows, the sound of water sharpens, the air cools. Everything you do adjusts to the shape of stone around you. Whether you're paddling, walking, or just breathing, the canyon changes how you move through space. The river runs clear, fast, and cold. You raft past cliffs layered with time, under old stone bridges, through white water that flashes and fades. Then it goes quiet. A heron lifts. Trees lean inward. The walls close. The canyon moves between loud and still in seconds. This canyon cuts through karst, porous limestone, shaped by water and filled with caves, springs, and underground channels. Rain and snowmelt from the Dinaric Alps feed the Taurus flow, keeping it wild, oxygen-rich, and drinkable even as it runs. This UNESCO-protected biosphere reserve hosts over 130 species of birds, dense beech and pine forests, and bears that move unseen along the upper ridgelines. Tara doesn't show off. It carries you through depth, through time, through stone. What if a forest faded, but the giants remained? Near Morondava in western Madagascar, more than 20 towering Granadier's baobabs rise along a dirt road. These trees, some over 30 meters tall and 800 years old, are all that's left of a much older ecosystem. Now they stand spaced apart, like monuments without a temple. There's no canopy, no dense green. Just dust, silence, and trunks so wide you can't reach around them. Their bark is smooth and pale. Their branches sprawl like roots turned upside down. You don't enter this place, you pass through it, watched by the trees. The road is red clay, the air is dry. Footsteps crunch, zebu carts creak, and the shadows of the baobabs stretch long even before sunset. Their presence isn't just physical, it's spatial. They define distance, they slow time. These are endemic to Madagascar. Adansonia grandadiri, the largest of 6 native baobab species. Their massive trunks store water for dry seasons. Their fruit is edible. But here, it's form that overwhelms function. They feel sculpted. Villagers pass on foot or bicycle. Children play at the roots. Some trees are marked with offerings. The baobabs hold spiritual and cultural meaning, as well as ecological significance. This is not a tourist corridor, it's a place still lived in. The Avenue of the Baobabs doesn't ask for silence, it creates it. Trees older than memory, standing alone where a forest used to be. In northeastern Thailand, near the edge of the Mekong River in Ubon Ratchathani province, you'll find Samphan Bok. The name means 3,000 holes, though there are actually thousands more water-carved basins, pockets, and channels etched deep into red sandstone. Most visitors only see this place during the dry season, when the Mekong pulls back and reveals a sculpted riverbed that spent months underwater. The river is gone now, only traces remain in smooth depressions, swirling grooves, and potholes shaped by centuries of seasonal flooding. This canyon doesn't rise high like others you might know. It spreads low and wide, quiet and exposed under intense sunlight. You walk across warm stone that feels smooth under your feet. Some holes are shallow enough to step over. Others drop deep enough that you can climb down inside them. Some hold small pools that reflect passing clouds or overhanging leaves. Others stay completely dry, clean, and silent. You keep walking, and the patterns shift constantly, but never repeat exactly. Over thousands of years, swirling river currents carried debris and applied seasonal pressure that eroded the sandstone into its current form. The process continues today. During monsoon season, the river returns to carve and smooth what it left behind. The air stays dry and still. At sunrise or dusk, light slides across the surface and falls into each hole, turning them into tiny wells of shadow or gold. No two basins hold the same reflection. Local fishermen and villagers know this rhythm well: arrival, erosion, absence, return. What if a glacier wasn't just ice, but the weight of fire held still? Vatnajökull Glacier covers roughly 8,000 square kilometers in southeast Iceland. That's nearly 8% of the entire country. But this isn't some frozen sheet sitting quietly in the mountains. This is a living system where volcanoes, lakes, and geothermal activity bubble beneath tons of ice. It moves, melts, collapses, and rebuilds in cycles that have been running for thousands of years. The ice breathes. Beneath that white surface, magma simmers and waits. Volcanic eruptions from Grimsvatn and Bunga occasionally burst through, melting ice from below and creating sudden floods called jokulaps. These aren't gentle streams, they're walls of water that can reshape entire valleys in hours. When you walk across this frozen plain, the surface creaks under your feet. Crevices split the ice. Some are shallow scratches, others descend into blue voids that seem to go on forever. Inside the ice caves, light refracts in layers of teal, silver, and deep cobalt. Every sound echoes sharper, every step requires thought. The glacier feeds rivers, floods, and weather systems across Iceland. In some places, it's over 900 meters thick. Climate changes cause parts of it to thin or vanish completely, revealing black volcanic plains and ash fields underneath. Arctic foxes move across the moraine around its edges, while ravens call overhead. You don't conquer Vatnajökull, you observe it and leave carefully. This glacier doesn't offer simple answers. It offers layers, heat buried in cold, movement sealed in stillness. The air moves slowly, and everything inside it is watching. In northern Sumatra, Gunung Luser National Park spreads across 7,900 square kilometers of dense rainforest, mountains, and river valleys. This UNESCO-listed wilderness stands as one of Southeast Asia's most biodiverse ecosystems and serves as the final stronghold for species that shouldn't exist anywhere else on Earth. This isn't open forest. It closes around you. Roots twist underfoot while vines pull down light. You hear movement before you see anything, branches shifting above, a wing beat cutting through humid air, water moving over hidden rocks. Every step feels borrowed. Orangutans move overhead in silence, careful and slow. You spot one, rust-red hair catching filtered sunlight, long fingers curling around a branch. Deeper in, Sumatran elephants push through bamboo groves. Tigers remain mostly unseen, but their presence marks clawed trunks and snapped undergrowth. Gunung Luser holds one of only 2 places where orangutans still live wild. It shelters the last populations of Sumatran rhinos and tigers. The rainforest supports over 4,000 plant species, countless insects, and dozens of hornbill, gibbon, and primate species, each dependent on layered overlapping habitats. Rangers monitor poaching routes, while biologists track primates. Local guides lead treks from Bukit Lawang, one of the few access points, balancing tourism with protection. Humidity makes every sound heavier. The forest breathes back. Rain starts and stops without warning. Leaves fall without wind. You keep walking, but slowly. Everything else moves faster than you, even when it doesn't move at all. Gunung Lusar doesn't open up, it closes in, not to trap, but to teach you how to see. The sea holds its breath, and the mountains rise from it. Ha Long Bay sits in northern Vietnam along the Gulf of Tonkin, spreading across 1,500 square kilometers of jade-colored water. Nearly 2,000 limestone karsts and islets emerge from the calm surface. Some stand sharp and jagged, others curve gently upward. Most remain uninhabited. The bay's name means descending dragon, pulled from an ancient legend that dragons dropped jewels into the sea to form these islands. The stillness here hides constant movement. Beneath the quiet, erosion never stops. Rain, wind, and salt water carve caves, arches, and hidden grottos through the limestone. This process has continued for millions of years. The karsts aren't just rising from the water, they're disappearing grain by grain, shaped by time itself. You drift by boat through this landscape. Oars tap gently against the water. Fog hangs low, blurring where water meets sky. You pass floating fishing villages where children wave from wooden platforms. Nets trail behind small boats. A sudden cliff rises in front of you, close but silent. These formations took 500 million years to create through plate shifts and marine transgression. The tropical climate and endless time sculpted towers that reach over 100 meters high. Caves like Tin Kung and Sung Sot hollow out the limestone, where light filters through stone like water through leaves. Ha Long Bay earned UNESCO World Heritage protection. Tour boats follow narrow lanes between the karsts. Kayakers move through sea tunnels carved by ancient waves. Many islets have no names. The named ones carry titles like Fighting Cock or Incense Burner, shaped more by local stories than their actual forms. What if the sky didn't end, but folded itself onto the ground? In southwest Bolivia, the world's tallest salt flat stretches over 10,000 square kilometers at an altitude of 3,656 meters. Salar de Uyuni started as a prehistoric lake that dried into a crusted plain of white hexagonal patterns. The surface sits so flat and expansive that scientists use it to calibrate satellite altimeters from space. There is no noise here, no trees, no rivers, no edge. Only salt, thick, dry, blinding under full sun. During the rainy season, a thin sheet of water turns the surface into a perfect mirror. The sky duplicates, the ground disappears. You walk carefully, but there's nothing to trip on. Just crunching salt and horizon. A single cactus-covered island rises in the middle, Isla Incahuasi, but otherwise the view doesn't change. Or rather, it changes constantly, in light and illusion. The salt flat formed from ancient lakes that evaporated millions of years ago. Beneath the crust lies a massive reserve of lithium-rich brine. One of the planet's most important sources. But on the surface, it feels untouched, elemental. In dry months, the crust fractures into perfect polygons, hard, geometric, endless. In the wet season, even your reflection wavers. Cars seem to float. People photograph each other at an impossible scale. It's real, but rarely feels that way. Small towns like Uyuni and Kolkani serve as entry points. Local guides drive hours across the flat without signs. Tourists visit for photography, for silence, for sunrise, when the sky turns orange and pink over a world without corners. Salar de Uyuni doesn't feel like a landscape, it feels like a pause. A place between ground and cloud, holding both without choosing. Stone rises in shapes that have no name in central Turkey's Cappadocia region. These aren't mountains or hills, they're spires, cones, and pillars called fairy chimneys that stretch across valleys like Gorim, Uchizar, and Pasabag. But here's where it gets strange. People once lived inside them. Wind shaped the stone over millions of years. People shaped the hollow spaces inside. You walk through a gorge and suddenly see windows carved into rock faces. Steps leading nowhere. Whole chapels cut directly into cliff walls. The land is beautiful, but it's never just natural. At sunrise, hundreds of hot air balloons lift silently over pink stone and pale grass. Below, dusty trails wind between rock towers. The air stays dry even when the sun beats down. You can enter a cave church and find faded frescoes still holding their color after centuries. These formations came from volcanic eruptions that deposited layers of ash and basalt millions of years ago. The soft tuffstone erodes easily, making it perfect for carving homes, storage rooms, and places of worship right into the valley walls. Cappadocia became a refuge for early Christians and a crossroads of empires. Underground cities like Kaimakli and Duriankuyu once hid thousands of people completely invisible from above. These weren't small hideouts, they were massive networks of tunnels and rooms, carved deep into the earth. Cappadocia holds time differently than other places. Wind shapes the outside, while humans shaped the inside. In the stillness between, the land remembers both. The water doesn't move much, but it moves enough to hold the sky. Tarn's House sits quietly in the Lake District of northern England, between the villages of Coniston and Hawkshead. This small body of water nestles among gentle hills and woodlands, looking perfectly natural. But here's the thing, it's not. Victorian engineers created this tarn in the 19th century by combining 3 smaller natural pools into one. The stillness you see today was carefully shaped by human hands. This isn't wilderness, it's cultivated quiet, designed to feel natural but subtly framed. The paths are well trodden, worn smooth by countless footsteps. The trees mix native species with introduced ones, planted during an era when people believed they could improve on nature. The view has been tended to, not manipulated, but chosen. You walk a circular path just under 3 kilometers long. It rises slightly, offering views down onto the tarn. The air stays damp, carrying earthy scents from the surrounding soil. Sheep graze in distant fields, their presence part of the managed landscape. Reflections ripple across the water's surface, then still again. The landscape doesn't demand your attention, it gives you space to breathe. Glaciers carved the Lake District's landforms thousands of years ago, but Tarn House itself came later. Beatrix Potter once owned this land before donating it to the Natural Trust. The wind here stays quiet. Colors layer themselves, greens, grays, in a still blue that breaks only when birds land. Other walkers pass by, but no one rushes. This place was built to slow people down. Tarn House doesn't show off, it holds still. A mirror of land and light, small enough to feel personal, shaped enough to feel timeless. What if the earth opened its mouth and nothing green came out? In northeastern Ethiopia, 125 meters below sea level, sits the Danakil Depression. This isn't just another hot desert. It's a geologic fracture where three massive tectonic plates pull apart, exposing raw earth in ways that feel almost violent. The Red Sea, African, and Arabian plates meet here in what scientists call a triple junction, creating lava lakes, salt plains, sulfur springs, and geysers that hiss and bubble without warning. There's no softness here. Temperatures climb past 45 degrees Celsius regularly. The air burns sharp and chemical in your lungs. The ground beneath your feet cracks and shifts constantly. Colors shock your eyes: neon yellow pools, blood red mineral deposits, electric green patches, all natural, all produced by sulfur, iron, and relentless heat. You walk carefully across surfaces crusted with salt and minerals. Pools boil without any visible fire source. Cracks open underfoot as you step. The smell of sulfur stings your nose and throat. The horizon shakes and wavers in the brutal heat. It feels like witnessing the beginning of the world, or maybe its end. Mount Erta Ale holds one of the Earth's few permanent lava lakes, constantly active and glowing. Rainwater mixes with geothermal gases to create acidic pools with pH levels below 1, more acidic than battery acid. Yet the Afar people live and work here, harvesting salt blocks by hand and loading them onto camel caravans. Their presence makes this hellscape feel even more surreal. The Danakil Depression offers proof that Earth is still forming, still breaking, still burning. Svalbard sits halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole, and feels like it belongs to neither. The remote Arctic archipelago stretches between 74 degrees and 81 degrees north latitude, making it one of the most northern places humans call home. The main settlement, Longyearbyen, houses around 2,000 people, surrounded by snow-covered mountains, deep fjords, and glaciers that seem to go on forever. But here's what makes Svalbard truly impossible. The sun doesn't follow normal rules. For over 4 months in summer, it never sets. For over 4 months in winter, it never rises. This isn't just a cool fact about daylight hours. The light shapes everything here. Your sleep, your mood, even when wildlife moves around. The cold hits you the moment you step outside, even in June. It's dry and sharp, demanding layers of clothing that make you look like you're heading to outer space. Snowmobiles outnumber cars because regular vehicles can't handle the terrain. Everyone who ventures outside town carries a rifle, not to use it, but because polar bears are real and sometimes close. Nearly 60% of Svalbard stays covered in glaciers year-round. These ancient ice sheets contain exposed fossil beds and coal seams that tell stories of when this frozen wasteland was once a tropical forest. Arctic foxes leave tracks in the snow, while reindeer graze near abandoned mining sites. Walruses gather on rocky beaches, but most of the time, you hear only wind or the distant crack of shifting glacier ice. In the heart of Bohol, Philippines, over 1,200 hills rise from the earth in perfect symmetry. Each one reaches between 30 and 50 meters high, nearly conical, covered in grass that shifts from green to chocolate brown as seasons change. They spread across more than 50 square kilometers, evenly spaced, like nature decided to follow a blueprint. The repetition feels uncanny. You expect chaos, random peaks, valleys cutting through. Instead, you get rise, fall, rise, fall. Each hill looks different, yet almost identical. No sharp edges, no forest cover, no rivers threading between them. Just smooth, rounded forms, that seem pressed into the landscape by an invisible hand. Standing at the main viewpoint, the sky opens wide above you. The land curves gently in every direction. The air sits still. You trace each contour with your eyes, muted colors that change with the light. It doesn't feel wild or untamed. It feels deliberate. These hills formed from limestone deposits left behind when ancient seas covered this area. Thousands of years of rain and groundwater slowly carved the stone, isolating each hill from its neighbors. No volcanic drama, just pressure, time, and water working together. Local legends speak of giants throwing stones during epic battles or weeping until they exhausted themselves. The stories make sense here. Logic alone can't explain the landscape's quiet perfection. The stillness invites myth. A few paths lead to viewing decks. Some distant roads curve through the valleys. But the hills themselves remain untouched. You can't climb them. You're meant to observe, not conquer. The chocolate hills don't rise to impress visitors. They rise because the earth allowed them to. One rhythm, repeated until it became a permanent form. The ground is cracked, silent, and then it burps. In Buzău County, eastern Romania, you'll find the Burcă mud volcanoes scattered across sites like Păclele Mari and Păclele Mici. These aren't volcanoes in the way you'd expect. No magma here. Instead, natural gas pockets deep underground push clay, water, and mud up through fault lines, creating something entirely different. From a distance, the landscape looks fossilized. Pale gray cones dot cracked soil across a lifeless plateau. But it's not dead. The ground twitches. Bubbles rise, mud spits from vents with soft gurgling sounds. It's a volcano turned inside out. Cold, slow, and restless. You walk carefully here. The crust underfoot feels brittle, thin in places. A small cone pulses and releases a lazy burp of wet clay. Some flows are fresh and glistening, others have dried in rigid patterns, curling like skin. Nothing grows where the mud reaches. This mud originates from over 3,000 meters underground, where natural gas forces it up through fault lines. The expelled mix is cool, thick, and rich in salts and minerals. Unlike lava, it doesn't burn, it covers. The air smells faintly of sulfur. The sound is minimal, thick plops and distant hissing. Sunlight hits the cracked surfaces and turns everything matte and pale. The palette is limited: gray, beige, silver, white. There are footpaths, low fences, and quiet signage. Few crowds, children crouch near slow eruptions, photographers wait for the next release. It's not dramatic, but strangely absorbing. You don't watch it, you listen to it rearrange. Hexagon after hexagon, fitted tighter than any wall built by hand. Welcome to the Giant's Causeway on Northern Ireland's north coast, where 40,000 basalt columns rise from the shore like ancient stepping stones. Most have 6 sides, forming clusters that stretch into the sea and create platforms, steps, and towers, reaching over 12 meters high. You expect randomness from nature, not precision, but here, the columns repeat in patterns too clean to ignore. You walk across the stones like tiles, uneven yet organized. Some have smooth tops, others have sunk or split. All feel shaped, but not by tools. Local legend says the giant Fionn mac Cumhaill built the causeway to cross to Scotland, only to tear it up behind him after being tricked into retreat. The stone makes the story feel plausible. It looks made. Science tells a different story. Around 50 to 60 million years ago, volcanic activity caused lava to flow and cool rapidly under specific conditions. As it contracted, it cracked into geometric shapes, mostly hexagons, but some with 4, 5, or 7 sides. The result was natural architecture. You descend from grassy cliffs to reach the columns. Waves slap the edge. Moss clings to cracks. You test each stone before stepping. Some hold puddles that reflect the sky. Others are dry, worn smooth by centuries of visitors. There's a visitor center above, trails and guided paths, but the land needs little introduction. Even with others present, the space remains self-contained. You come not for drama, but for pattern, myth, and grounding. Lake Natron sits in northern Tanzania, just steps from the Kenyan border. This shallow water body stretches 57 kilometers long and 22 kilometers wide, but you'll rarely find it deeper than 3 meters. From above, it looks peaceful, almost fragile. The surface reflects clouds and sky like a giant mirror dropped in the African landscape. But step closer and you'll notice something strange. The water glows red in patches, creating swirls of color that shift with the light. Touch that water and you'll understand why most animals stay away. The temperature can climb above 60 degrees Celsius. The pH level reaches nearly 10.5, making it almost as alkaline as household ammonia. This water contains massive amounts of sodium carbonate and other minerals that create a hypersaline environment. It's one of the harshest places in East Africa for most living things. Yet the chemistry that burns skin also creates something remarkable. When birds or small animals touch the lake's surface, the water calcifies their bodies, turning them into natural sculptures that stand like monuments on the shoreline. The lake sits in an active rift zone, where volcanic ash from nearby Old Doinyo Lengai volcano feeds alkaline minerals into the water. Despite these extreme conditions, spirulina algae thrives here, creating those red patches you see from above. Massive flocks of lesser flamingos actually depend on this harsh environment, feeding on the algae and building their nests on the salty crusts that form along the edges. Local communities keep their distance from the water itself, treating it as something to respect rather than use. In southern Peru, near the city of Arequipa, the Andes Mountains hold one of Earth's deepest cuts. Kawwa Canyon drops more than 3,200 meters from rim to riverbed, making it twice as deep as the Grand Canyon. But here's what makes it impossible: people still farm its walls. You expect sheer rock faces and empty space. Instead, you see green steps carved into cliffs. Stone homes balance above switchbacks. Trails wind down slopes where families still walk with mules, carrying crops up and down paths their ancestors built centuries ago. The canyon reveals itself in layers as you descend. You start at altitude where the air is thin and dry. High grasslands stretch across the rim. As you drop lower, the ecosystem shifts completely. cactus and scrub take over. Further down, river-cut valleys hold different crops, different wind patterns, different kinds of silence. The Kolka River carved this canyon through volcanic rock over millions of years. Tectonic pressure lifted the land while erosion cut deeper. The river still runs fast, still cutting. It hasn't stopped working. Andean condors rise on morning thermals above the rim. Their wings span over 3 meters, but they barely flap. They glide in complete silence, which makes them feel heavier than they should. Villages like Cabanaconde and Chivay sit on the canyon's edge. People farm, weave, and trade just as they have for centuries. Stone terraces stretch across slopes where no machines can reach. This isn't a museum of the past, it's a working present shaped by gravity and human determination. The Okavango River flows 1,600 kilometers from Angola's highlands, carrying precious water across borders toward what should be the Atlantic Ocean. But it never makes it there. Instead, it spreads across northern Botswana's Kalahari Desert, creating one of the world's largest inland deltas, covering 15,000 square kilometers during peak flood season. This isn't your typical river delta. The Okavango doesn't follow rules. Channels appear overnight, then vanish by morning. Islands emerge from floodwaters, only to disappear again when the water rises. The river doesn't carve through landscape, it becomes the landscape. Hippos bulldoze new waterways with their massive bodies. Elephants stomp paths through thick reed beds, reshaping the delta's geography with each step. You experience this place from a makoro, a traditional dugout canoe carved from a single tree. Your guide pulls silently through narrow channels, lined with towering papyrus. The only sounds are water lapping against the canoe, distant bird calls, and the soft splash of something moving beneath the surface. No engines disturb this rhythm. The timing here defies logic. Floodwaters arrive months after Angola's rainy season ends, expanding the delta during Botswana's driest months. This creates a counter-season that concentrates wildlife around the delta's pulse. Lion tracks cross flooded grasslands. Lechwe antelope bound through knee-deep water. Crocodiles drift beneath floating lilies. Over 400 bird species call this place home. The Okavango doesn't flow toward any destination. It expands, evaporates, and returns, a place shaped by rhythm rather than boundaries. The stone is soft in color, but it wasn't carved, it was poured. In southwestern Turkey, Pamukkale rises from the landscape like a frozen waterfall made of snow. These white travertine terraces formed over thousands of years as calcium-rich thermal spring water flowed over a cliff, cooled, and left mineral deposits behind. The result is dozens of terraced pools that look frozen mid-spill, curved into snowy steps that seem too perfect to be natural. You expect something solid to form from rock, not water. But here, stone builds the way snow falls, layer by layer, edge by edge. The formations look delicate, yet they hold their shape across centuries. Still, they're not immune to change. One misstep, one blocked channel, and the balance can shift. You step barefoot across smooth, pale ground. The water is warm, around 35 degrees Celsius, shallow, flowing in thin sheets. The terraces feel hollow and light beneath the surface, like walking on crystallized foam. Sound is minimal, a trickle, a footfall, wind moving through open air. The water emerges from a fault zone, rich in calcium carbonate. As it cools, the mineral precipitates and hardens into travertine. The process continues even now. Each drop leaves something behind. Over time, small ridges become steps, basins, ledges. Above Pamukkale sits ancient Hierapolis, once a Roman spa town. Ruins of baths, theaters, and temples still overlook the terraces. For centuries, people came here not just to look, but to be immersed in water, in ritual, in health. Today, the site is protected. Visitors walk only in designated areas. Water flow is carefully managed to preserve both the appearance and the ongoing formation process. Pamukkale doesn't overwhelm, it accumulates. Not built by force, but by repetition, warm water leaving cold stone behind. Picture massive orange and black striped domes rising from the Australian outback like ancient beehives scattered across a forgotten plateau. The Bungle Bungle Range in Pornululu National Park shows you rock formations that look too perfect to be real, yet they've stood here for 350 million years. From a helicopter, these domes stretch endlessly across the landscape in soft, rounded waves. Each one displays perfect bands of orange and black, creating patterns that seem almost painted on by hand. Some towers reach over 250 meters tall, making them feel like natural skyscrapers in the middle of nowhere. Walk between them and everything changes. The playful shapes from above become something deeper and more sacred. You enter narrow gorges like Echidna Chasm, where walls press close and midday sun cuts through stone and golden shafts. The heat becomes intense, and suddenly cool shade wraps around you. Those striking bands tell an incredible story. The orange stripes form from iron-rich sandstone, exposed to air and weather. The black bands contain living cyanobacteria that love moisture and actually help hold the fragile rock together. You can crumble the sandstone between your fingers, feeling how delicate these massive structures really are. For the Kija and Jaru people, these aren't just rocks. They're living stories connected to ceremony and identity, part of dreaming tracks that stretch back tens of thousands of years. The domes don't try to impress you. They simply endure, holding shape, story, and sky in perfect balance. What if the moon fell to Earth, and instead of impact, it left only silence and salt? Picture stepping into Chile's Valley of the Moon, where the Atacama Desert creates one of the most surreal landscapes you'll ever see. This isn't your typical desert with rolling sand dunes. Here, ancient salt deposits and relentless wind have carved a world that looks like it belongs on another planet entirely. Nothing grows here, no streams cut through the terrain. No shade offers relief from the endless blue sky above. Rock formations rise like frozen waves, their surfaces crusted with white salt that sparkles under the harsh sun. The land looks untouched, but it's actually changing constantly, just too slowly for us to notice. During daylight hours, everything appears stark and beige, almost colorless. But when the sun starts to drop, magic happens. Shadows stretch across the valley floor. The rocks begin to glow red and orange. Tourists gather in complete silence, not out of respect, but because words feel useless here. Your boots crunch on crystallized salt with each step. There's no birdsong, no wind, just this profound quiet that modern life never allows. The Valley of the Moon sits within the Cordillera de la Sal, or Salt Mountains, where millions of years of evaporation and tectonic activity shaped these impossible formations. The dryness here actually rivals Mars, which is why NASA tests their rovers in this very spot. This isn't dramatic scenery that overwhelms you. It's elemental, intimate geology, where Earth feels paused mid-creation. The Earth is full of wonders that defy logic and rewrite the rules of nature. If these impossible places stirred your imagination, hit subscribe because there's a whole world of the unbelievable still waiting to be discovered.